Okay, this is lesson 3 in the freehand sketching exercise of lessons. So in lesson 1 we learned how to do some freehand sketching of vertical lines, so drawing horizontal and vertical lines and trying to keep them sort of dark or light so that we're like that. And the second lesson we moved on to sketching arcs and circles and learning a technique like up here in the top corner, how to draw freehand circles. So what we're now going to do is try and start to draw 2D sketches of everyday objects. So by everyday objects, I'll put in this sheet. This is what we're sort of working roughly towards. So if we think about some of the items that we could sketch, here we've got is like a tri-square, which you would use in the woodwork workshop. I've got a marking gauge, another similar to what you'd use in the woodwork workshop. So both of these are quite straightforward, simple exercises because all it is horizontal and vertical lines. This one has got a slight angle to give the diamond pattern that you get on a tri-square. We've got another woodworking tool of a mallet, again all quite straightforward. I've started off, you can maybe just see if I zoom in just a little bit, I started off with a nice construction line of a rectangle, which is here, and then I drew the rest of the shape from that. Okay, so what we're going to do is going to have a go at trying to draw these exercises. I'll demonstrate it, and then once I'm finished you can have a go at trying to do that at home. So again, you get to yourself, be happy with whatever sketching angle you're going to use. I'm going to draw the tri-square up in this sort of top space up here, so I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. I'm rotating my paper round, and I'm going to start by drawing my two lines, or the blade of the tri-square. So if I take like this, and I draw this. Okay, so I've started off with a rectangle. Now the stock or the handle of the tri-square is going to be starting just at the edge of it, and again it's another rectangle, so that's me coming down, and another rectangle here coming down, coming across. So what I've done so far is drawn the whole thing in quite lightly. So from having done that, I'm now going to go over it in outline. So just going over it as one continuous line, going over the top of it, so that it stands out a little bit. What I'm still looking to do is concentrate on these horizontal and vertical lines. Okay, so there is my initial tri-square. So what I'll just do to that is I'm going to add in some of these little diamonds here. So just in a sort of diamond pattern, I'm just going to draw a slight angled line, same there, repeating that there and there just to give myself a little diamond, and then I'll just repeat them just on either side of it. And then the same at the bottom, fourth one. And there I have my finished tri-square. Okay, so that's quite a straightforward one. The marking gauge, I'm going to do quite similar. So with the marking gauge in this sort of space here, again thinking the stock of the marking gauge, which is the bit which comes across here, is just a simple rectangle, so I'll start by drawing that. Again, just thinking parallel lines, trying to work your horizontal lines. So I've got my basic rectangle. The tri-square is going to be the stem, which comes down through the object. So here's going to be the start of it, and then I'll just carry those lines on down through the bottom. Okay, so it may look like the tri-square is going off the bottom of the page. So the marking gauge is going off the bottom of the page, but I'm just going over the top of it, a little bit heavier to make it stand out. and there we have the sort of starting point. The only thing missing from tri-square is the sprue pin, so if I just take the sprue pin coming out like that and then rotate it round and put a little point on the top of it. So there we have our tri-square and our marking gauge complete. Okay, so from that we can try some other devices. So one of the things that I thought about trying to do was this idea here, one of these USB sticks. So again, looking at it, it's all very straightforward. It's rectangular in shape, it's got another rectangle inside it, it has got a rectangle at the front here with two little squares. So it's quite a simple shape to draw, but it's more of an everyday shape. So I'll just put that to the side and I'll start to draw that. So again, I'm going to rotate my paper round so that I can actually get a better sketching angle for myself. So it's long and narrow like this. I'm going to just square it off. Okay, so I'm going to have this with slightly rounded corners. So on this one here, I'm just going to use my freehand corners like that, and the same at the front here. I'm just going to do a freehand curve, and the same here again, so freehand curve, and then just darken in the edges so that they stand out. Okay, so there's my starting point of my USB stick. So what I'm just now going to do is this little idea of having the slider which is within it. So again, working parallel inside there, inside here, bringing it down. So that's a little rectangle where the slider is visible, and then there's just a little rectangle inside that, which is the part which you slide with your thumb to move the USB stick in and out. So my one has got a couple of little lines here and here, something like that. So then we've got the USB connector itself. So it's just a rectangle which comes out the front, and square it off. And just to add a bit of detail onto it, put a couple of squares. To make it look like a USB connector. So there we have my finished USB stick. Okay, so that's me get 3 everyday objects just using the simple sketching technique which I have taught you in lessons 1 and lesson 2. So I'll have a little go now at doing a mallet. So the same thing up in this top corner up here. So if I zoom in, I'll start off by drawing just a rectangle. I'll keeping it light to begin with. And what I'm going to do with this rectangle is I'm going to take the corners off at a slight angle to make it look like the mallet is sloping in, and then I will use my arc technique just to round the corners very slightly, just to give this idea of a slightly smoother finish. So we just rotate round, rotate it, and on to the last one, just the one up at the top corner here. Okay, so I'll just darken that in around the sides, just picking over it. Okay, so there's basically the head of my mallet. Now, sticking out the top of that, I'm going to have the handle of the mallet which goes right the way through it. It's going to come through it at a slight angle. You won't see too much of that at the top. But what I'll do is I'll have it coming in a slight taper as it comes down here. And then just square it off at the bottom. If you want, you could round the corners very slightly at the bottom, just so that it isn't a square. And there we have my finished mallet as well. So what I'm working on here is trying to draw a series of sketches Other ones that you could add in, as I've got here, is I've got one of these bottles, water bottles, that's got this ergonomic bit to grip your hand, and with the lid, what I've done is I've put a series of lines to act as the grip. Here I've done a wristwatch, so I've started off with the circle, using the square technique and drawing it out, and then I just did the strap onto it with its clasp at either side, and then as an additional one I've drawn a key here, where again I started with the circle and the smaller circle, and then did the rest of it using the rectangle and the angled lines. So that's the end of lesson 3 on sketching. So please have a go at this one, and good luck and enjoy.